Hi, welcome everyone. Before we turn the time over to Scott, I am going to do a super quick walkthrough of the platform just for anyone who missed it in the first session. Actually, Scott, I think where you're sharing screen,
It's fine.
we'll just go ahead and leave it there, and I'll walk through after you're done because it
don't mess up anything, right?
All good. So while we're watching Scott's presentation, we are going to be doing some giveaways all throughout ProfCon, both on social and for participation on the chat. So today there'll be a $5 gift card for the most engaged person in the session, whether it's on chat or on social. And if you're on social, make sure you use the hashtag ProfCon20 so that we can find you and give you credit for your participation. We're going to be giving a giveaway for the best caption, one for the most engaged social post. There will also be an MVP, most valuable poster on social, and that person will win over the entire time of the conference a $400 airline voucher. So very cool gift for someone who participates the most over the conference. Today's best caption and most engaged poster or chatter will be announced tomorrow morning, and you will win a chair massager. All right, so Scott's topic today, how to maximize teaching with digital marketing tools. As some of you may know, Scott Cowley has a PhD, and he's an assistant professor of marketing at Western Michigan University, where he leads the flourishing digital marketing and e-commerce program. Scott is an award-winning innovator in digital marketing education, creating projects that have been adopted at over 100 universities globally. And within the past year, he has received the Business School's annual Faculty Teaching Award, the Journal of Marketing Education's Award for Outstanding Article of the Year, and he coached a Western Michigan University team to first place in the National PNW Digital Marketing Competition. He has been a content consultant for multiple digital marketing textbooks and industry marketing certifications. And prior to earning his PhD at Arizona State University, Scott held positions in digital marketing strategy. And as you guys might have seen today, he is going to be one of the authors of our upcoming SEO textbook, and we are really excited to collaborate with him on this book. So without further ado, I'll turn the time over to Scott.
Thanks, Rochelle. I assume that you can see my screen. I assume that you can hear me okay. That's all I need to know. So I'm very excited to be here with you today to be able to talk about maximizing teaching with digital marketing tools. Keep in mind, you don't have to be a digital marketing professor to benefit from what I'm going to share today. I would, in fact, a lot of the tools that I'll be talking about are ones that I might use in a marketing principles class that could easily be used in a PR or a communications class. So the other thing I want to mention is that this presentation deck is available for you if you want to go view it later on your own. I just uploaded it to SlideShare just about an hour ago, but you can just go to scottcowley.com/teach. And you'll find a link to the presentation. And hopefully that's useful for you, especially if you've got a list of tools that you want to be able to go back and refer to without having to take notes by hand. Then you can do that. Again, scottcowley.com/teach. So the reason it's interesting, I was in planning out this presentation, originally this was going to be in person. It was going to be more of a workshop style presentation. We'll see how much time we have if I can take you in and actually show you some things at the end. Otherwise, I've packaged this so that we can do it remotely like this. We're all kind of remote education geniuses now, aren't we? I do want to just, I guess, clear the air and say, like, this is not an easy time to be an educator. It is harder in terms of the amount. I mean, I feel like I've put a lot more time when we all went online. I felt like it took a lot more time to do everything than what I was used to doing for my in-person class, doing that online. And it takes a lot more emotional labor. I think that we recognize that we are we're trying to take care of ourselves. We're trying to take care of our students and keep their spirits high, and and just know that, hey, we're all in this, and a lot of us are having to make do with less than we've been used to under challenging circumstances. But even in those circumstances, we can be uh, even better than we were before. We can learn things and improve ourselves, and that's hopefully what I'll be talking about today. And there's a lot of uncertainty in this environment, right? We don't know exactly what things are going to look like in 3 months or in 6 months as far as our education setup is concerned. I will tell you the scenario that I am crossing my fingers for is something like this. If you can see it on the screen, I saw this image just a few days ago, and I was like, man, I totally want that in my classroom. I don't know if it's going to work out that way, but fingers crossed. Couldn't be that much different than the other scenarios I've heard about. So here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about digital marketing tools and how to use those in your classes in a way that helps students become better strategists and better thinkers. Okay. Um, I like this quote from Jeff Dunderman, who's a sci-fi writer. He says, "A good tool improves the way you work. A great tool improves the way you think." And so, what I'm going to share with you are tools that I am using um, re- all the time in my own classes. And they are tools that I can specifically point to and say, these tools have helped students ace interviews, get jobs, win case competitions. Okay. And and some of these tools, like, you're probably already familiar with. Okay, you may use them. The idea behind this presentation is how to get more out of the tools that you already potentially are using. Okay, so what I'm going to talk to you about is really what we have. So many tools, and that's what's great about digital marketing, is there's so many different tools that we can use and help our students learn how to be good thinkers and decision makers. What do I look for in a great tool? In my mind, the best tools out there are tools that are doing things that I can't do on my own, right? That I can't get anywhere else. My favorite tools, and the ones that I'm going to focus on today mostly, are ones that provide novel data that will help me in my decision making. Okay, there are lots of other tools that I'm sure you're really familiar with and enjoy, that help facilitate the execution of a campaign or creative concept. Okay, and I like some of those too, and I'll mention some of them briefly. But in my mind, the best tools that you can find and use are those that are not just interesting and students can become proficient at, but they're the type of tools that are going to fuel action by somebody, that somebody is going to do something as a result of you using the tool. And as I was putting this presentation together, I realized that the tools um, that I'm going to highlight, the main ones, all have very interesting and entertaining stories around something that has happened as a result of using the tool. So I hope to kind of get you thinking about how you might use these tools more frequently, more strategically. What you'll find in a lot of these tools is that they are great in that I can string a whole bunch of them together into a particular project or assignment or in-class exercise in a way that makes them that much more versatile. It gets more out of them. Okay, but what I do want to kind of give you a sense of where we're going with this. Let's see, but I want to make sure that I don't overwhelm you with tools. Okay, there is a certain style of blog post that I'm sure we've all seen out there that looks something like this: 99 online marketing tools you won't be able to live without. And every time I see one of these things, I want to, throw myself against a wall, because, Dan, ain't nobody got time for that. Um, a- and so I would much rather have like a blog post that is like, here are 2 tools that you can use all the time, than something that I'm not going to be able to really filter through. So that's the mentality I'm bringing to the presentation. Um, the the focus of the presentation today is I am going to talk about some tools, or like some web-based tools that you are probably familiar with. I'll talk about some other tools that I won't put as much time into in the presentation, but I want to start by talking about a couple of things that I consider decision-making tools and analysis tools that are more frameworks than they are websites or downloadable, installable things. Okay. These two tools that I'm going to talk to you about first are tools that have come in handy so many times and are really the ones that are helping students, like I mentioned, win case competitions and get jobs and ace interviews. Okay. Um, and if they are new to you, then that's my hope, is that these are things that you can teach your students. Okay. And for you, they're going to make you that much better of a marketing strategist and analyst and decision maker. Okay. So first thing I want to tell you about is a strategy tool that I love. It's really, really basic. I taught this strategy tool. I had like an hour and a half long session with everybody at our university who manages some type of website property at WMU. Okay, so this included all of the different web managers from across the different colleges, and I basically spent an hour and a half going over this tool, and I could spend 4 hours going over this particular strategy tool. So hopefully, I have not hyped it up too much for you, but I'll talk about this. This is actually mentioned in briefly in Stu Kent's Digital Marketing Essentials textbook, but I had heard about this before I even entered academia. This is something that we rely on very heavily as digital marketers in a very basic way. So this is called three questions analysis. And the beauty of three questions analysis is it a way for you to analyze any sort of piece of marketing or communications that you are looking at. That includes websites, that includes ads, email, anything where you are trying to achieve something through creating some type of marketing communication. Three questions analysis goes like this. Every single piece of content you create, or I specifically introduced this when we're talking web design. Every page of your website that you care about should answer three questions for somebody who comes to that page and doesn't know anything about you. Okay. Question one, what are you offering? Question two, why should I choose you? And question three, what do you want me to do next? It sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? But you'll be amazed at how many websites and web pages don't do this basic thing. And we can break this out into sub questions like I typically do. What are you offering? We have to be able to quickly communicate, where am I? What website am I on? And what exactly is being offered on this page? Why should I pick you needs to quickly communicate. First, why should I trust you? Why should I even buy from you if I don't know anything about you? And we talk a lot about trust signals, and it's a lengthy conversation to show how many different ways companies can increase trust in a very, very short period of time for somebody that comes to the website. And why exactly should I pick this particular thing that you're offering on this page as opposed to something else you're offering or something that one of your competitors is offering? So making sure that the page or the ad or the email answers those questions is critical. What do you want me to do next? And I make the point to my students that historically we do not want to think a whole lot as consumers, right? The most famous book on web design is it's by Steve Krug, called "Don't Make Me Think." The idea is that we don't want to think any more than we have to, and so if you're a marketer, you need to tell people what you want them to do, and we typically do that in the form of a call to action button. Okay, now the thing I love about this framework, this tool, is that it works all the time. It works in so many different ways. I got an email just a couple of months ago from a student who was in a job interview for a position that was going to have her consulting with a bunch of different car dealerships about their websites. And during the interview, they asked her they showed her a web page, a typical car dealership web page, and said, "Hey, what do you think about this web page? What would you change about it?" And she wasn't really ready for that, but she intuitively jumped right back to this framework and just verbalized and answered out loud, "Okay, first I'm going to see, does the page answer effectively what are you offering? And then Does it have a unique value proposition? Does it build trust? And answering that second question, what do you want me to do next? Are we effective at that? And her interviewers were so impressed by the fact that she used this nice methodical framework that they were writing this down and were like complimentary about that. She got the job, and so now that's what she does full time. I'll give you another example of how this came into play. So this is the website for the airport in Kalamazoo. You can find it at flyazo.com. And what's fascinating about this is that I use this example in class and I say, okay, students, use the 3 questions analysis on this website. Who are you? What are you offering? Why should I choose you? What do you want me to do next? And the amazing part to this is that this airport website fails every single one of those. Okay. And the funny thing is like at first instinct, you wouldn't necessarily realize that. It looks pretty decent visually, right? The design is okay. But the story behind this is so funny because the airport actually hired one of my classes of students to help them redesign their website. The previous version of this website, this is the latest version. They updated this maybe a year ago, but the previous version was a mess. It had been hacked and it was selling Viagra on search engine results, which is fun. And they knew it needed to change. Like 90% of the phone calls that the airport was getting about the website or being hacked. So we did the research to make recommendations about what they needed to change on their website, and used analytics, used usability testing, things like that. And they hired a company to make these changes. And as you can see, it's an aesthetic overhaul. This is the newest version, but the company they hired to make the website updates didn't know anything about marketing. Okay, so it just goes to show you that and we just do this over and over and over again with different type of websites using the framework, and the students realize over time that most websites are good at some things and maybe not so good at others. That's the typical life of a consultant. That's what I'm trying to turn my students into, is good decision makers, and the easiest way to do that is with a framework like this. So the issue is, I don't know if you're going to go be able to look this up somewhere. I've looked up 3 questions analysis, and it's not, there aren't really a lot of websites that you can refer back to. But the important thing to note is that it's so simple, it's so easy, and it's so intuitive and so powerful. So I find ways throughout the entire semester, or even in private chats with my students about their own businesses, to jump back to this website. If anybody asks you, hey, take a look at my website and let me know what you think, this is what I want my students to always jump to. Okay, so the second tool that I want to teach you is also a decision-making tool, a framework for strategy. And this is a framework that I've had a chance to sit down with our university's VP of marketing and taught this to him. This is a framework that we've used in many cases in our work and case competitions, and been very successful at this. This framework that I'm going to show you is called the Hero Hub Help Content Strategy. Some of you might be familiar with this, especially if you've worked in industry. This is a framework that was created by YouTube, the company, specifically to teach video creators, how can I grow an audience and not annoy that audience, but use that audience if I need to sell something at some point, to drive action. Okay. So the Hero Hub Help strategy, and this is something you can search for. If you just look for like Hero Hub Help YouTube, probably the first result is a very nice page that YouTube gives for to walk you through how this works. And this doesn't just apply to video; it applies to website content strategy. It applies to any sort of media strategy. And I will try to summarize this briefly. Again, the whole point of this is that people hate to be advertised to repeatedly. Okay. We don't want a relationship with a company where all we see are their ads, right? And so the strategy is telling you and teaching you, how can I create a content strategy that is not reliant on just advertising? How can I create value in other ways that will create a loyal following, a loyal audience. And then when I do need to advertise to them, they aren't going to be put off. They aren't going to leave because I've created so much value leading up to that point that when I do show an ad or an offer with a call to action, then and it's totally fine. I won't lose much of my audience, and I will continue to grow an audience that I will be able to tap into for free, more or less, um, and not have to pay purely for advertising. Here's how it works at a basic level. You have three different types of content. Hero content, represented by the big circle. This is your ad. This is the type of content that is based around your biggest messaging that will turn people into actual paying customers or whatever drives your business model. Okay. And when we talk about a hero content, we're talking about something you may only use a couple of times a year. Okay. This might be a new product launch. It might be a seasonal campaign, like a Christmas holiday campaign. Okay. There are going to be lots of ads around this, and you're going to put a lot of money into this. You're going to put maybe 80% of your promotion budget into this type of content, because the more people who see this messaging, the more money you're going to get. Okay. Pure and simple. But people don't like ads. So that's why we need two other types of content that are going to create value and grow our audience before we ever get to hero content. The second type of content is called hub content. And you may not realize this, but you already know what hub content is. If you have a series on YouTube that you watch repeatedly, there's a very good chance that that's just hub content. All hub content is, it is a formulaic approach to some type of content where you have a winning formula and you're going to repeat that formula every single time. You might switch something up, but you're going to repeat it. So that, think of any example of popular YouTube series. Hot Ones has interviews with celebrities while they're eating spicy wings. You've got James Corden and Carpool Karaoke, right? It's the exact same formula, but we've just brought another guest on. Okay. And there are a lot of different ways to use this. That the important part is that you figure out what is going to really entertain and delight and maybe inform my audience, so that as you create these on a predictable schedule, somebody is going to find out about one of these pieces of content. They're going to read it or watch it. They're going to fall in love with it. They're going to go looking for other versions of this that you've done previously. They're going to find a whole slew of these and they're going to binge watch all of them. And at that point, they're hooked and they say, hey, I want more of these. And so I'm going to subscribe so that I know what I can expect and I'm going to get more of these in the future. So the hub content is really a powerful thing to grow the audience in a way that is just you providing value. And you are putting some promotional budget into hub content, right? If 80% is going into your big campaigns, you're still going to put 20% into your hub content because you need to introduce that content. You know it's good. You need to introduce it to new audiences. And you know that by introducing that to one person, there's a good chance that they're going to go fall in love with the other things that you've already created. And so students can have a lot of fun trying to figure out, hey, what are some winning, really catchy hub content concepts for a particular client or for some sort of exercise. Okay. The third type of content that good companies are creating is what we call help content. Help content is the content that you're creating specifically because of things that people in your target market are searching for. Okay, so this is purely SEO driven. You use SEO tools to figure out, hey, what are people interested in? And I will create content specifically to fill that need. And I'll optimize it. And you've got to know good SEO. In my own class, I'm teaching students how to specifically create video where they have to do good SEO to it and get it ranking without having any sort of promotional budget. I actually just published a journal article that walks through this exercise of helping students create an optimized video for YouTube and do so successfully. And Marketing Education Review is the journal. You can find that, or you can send me an email and I can send that over to you. That's been really successful. Some students have gotten thousands of views just by a good SEO strategy around help content. Help content, though, is not getting any promotional budget. Okay. You're relying strictly on being able to uh, optimize content well enough so that it gets found by the people who are searching for it. Okay. So this is the Hero Hub help content strategy. And every single company can benefit from this strategy. Every single marketer, every single small business owner can benefit from thinking about how can I create value instead of just advertise to people. Okay. In my own case, my wife, it happens to be an author. She's just signed a book deal. She's got a whole series of books that'll start coming out about this time next year. So we've got a whole year to prepare. And we've been talking about how do we create this sort of strategy for an individual author, knowing that at some point she's going to advertise her book. And it would be much better if between now and then she can build up an audience and provide a lot of value for that audience so that when it comes time to advertise her book, uh, people aren't bothered by it, right? They know that you've been giving so much to them, they're willing to give something back in return. In this case, her audience is specifically people who like Jane Austen. And so the hub content that we've created for her is she's going to create a whole bunch of lessons on writing, strictly using examples from Jane Austen's published novels, because that will help grow the specific audience that she's interested in. Okay. What this strategy does over time is, if you can imagine that you put a lot of money into promoting your hero messaging, but it's just advertising. So as soon as that doesn't have a budget, then the visibility for that messaging goes way down. But as you create hub content, as you create help content, your audience is going to grow significantly over time. And you, when you need to, you can actually use your hub content and help content and insert messaging that would be related back to your hero content and capitalize on that audience. Okay. So you'd be amazed if you go looking, you will find so many companies that do this, whether they're explicit about it or not. They may not say it quite like that, but there are tons of companies that do this. Here's one example. A lot of you have seen advertising for Purple mattresses. Well, yeah, they've got their hero content, their big campaigns, but they also have hub and help content. They create a lot of video tutorials answering customer questions. They also create hub content. They've got something they created called the Purple Boys Sleep Series, which is kind of weird, but again, it's designed to drive interest over time. These individual pieces of hub content have, as you can see, like 1.2 million views, right? It's not guaranteed, but the idea is that you are creating something that is valuable and entertaining on its own, that is not just selling what you're trying to sell. Okay. So I want to stress that when we talk about tools, these are tools that you can use over and over and over again in so many different contexts that that it makes them extremely valuable. And that's the whole point, is that we want to maximize the ability for students to draw on tools that they have learned and realize that they can use them throughout their lives and in a lot of different situations. Okay. What you may have been interested in is thoughts around much more traditional tools that you might be able to access or download online. And so what I'm going to walk you through are only 4 tools that I think are the most versatile tools in terms of decision making that I think every student would benefit from, whether it's in high school, whether it's in an introductory marketing class, whether it's in a communications class. Okay, that's a nice thing. I say that they're digital marketing tools, but that's just because they reflect consumers' digital behavior, okay, or companies' digital behavior. So I'm going to focus on 4 of these, and then I'm going to run through a list of several others that I really like and use frequently, but maybe aren't quite as versatile. Okay, so the story behind the first one is that last year there was a website that published this story about that referenced Western Michigan University. And the story was called "The 10 Best Hidden Gem Public Universities in the U.S." And wouldn't you know it, we were rated number 1, which is awesome. And if you can imagine in your own university, if this sort of story came out, like your communications department would be all over that, and it would be plastered all over the website. And in our case, like our university president even like referenced it at graduation and saw it everywhere, saw all the students sharing it, saw the faculty sharing it. And here's the deal. I I'm much more skeptical about things like this because I've worked in digital marketing, and I know that this looks an awful lot like what we call ego bait. Ego bait is where you say something nice about somebody, and then they'll share it, and they'll drive traffic back to your website. How can we prove that this is ego bait? Well, for one thing, if you looked at this website that published this College Gazette, you would find that they were just barely started like in October, and then they published this in December. You'll find that all of their articles and content are exactly the same type of formula. The 10 best undergraduate private universities for biology, right? Like, surely you will rank number one somewhere on one of these lists, okay? But the tool that I specifically was interested in using and showed my students and have really tried to get my students to use themselves is a tool I really like called builtwith.com. If you want, you can pull it up in your own browser. You can play around with it. This is a search engine. What the search engine does is it lets you enter in any website, and it will essentially scan the code of that website. It will cross-reference that code with a database of codes that it knows are tied to specific software, or could be tracking pixels, could be code that are related to the things that the website is doing. Okay. And the thing I like about this tool is that you can pretty much do a ton of great competitive analysis on what a website is using behind the scenes that average consumer is not going to know about. Everything from what they're using in terms of their ad tracking and ad tech, to what CMS they're using, what plugins they might be using. Are they using any other forms of customer analytics? And you wouldn't know this if you just went to the website, right? But as a strategist, you can learn a lot about what your competitor is doing or what a particular website is doing. So and the funny thing is, when I used this on collegegazette.com, what I was fascinated by is that this looked like any other ordinary publisher website, and I could not figure out the business model. Okay. There was no subscription. There was no advertising on this website. None of that. And it looked pretty harmless. But then when you use BuiltWith, we found out that the website has 72 different ad tech codes being triggered. What that basically means is that they've installed all of these different ad platforms behind the scenes, so that somebody who comes to the website is suddenly going to be sharing a ton of information about themselves with all these different ad platforms, with the intent that down the road, this website is probably going to be introducing advertising and selling that ad space off to all these different programmatic ad platforms, for example. So all of a sudden, it makes you realize that there is a lot going on behind the scenes that you may not have realized, and this can change your decision making. It can change what sort of advantage you realize your competitors might have that you don't have. So I've used this very frequently. A student last week said, "Hey, I'm in this third round of an interview, and I know I'm going to be talking to them about some of the different advertising platforms that they're using. So, but I don't know a lot about platforms. Like, what should I do to get ready for this?" Well, that's a hard conversation. So what do? We just go figure out, okay, what client is this that you're potentially working for? Put it into builtwith.com, and we could see exactly which type of ad platforms they were using. And so that student saved a ton of time by knowing exactly what they could mention in conversation because they knew what the company was using. Okay. So I really like BuiltWith, extremely versatile tool for learning what's going on behind the scenes, which I think is really important as a marketer. Okay. Next tool is one that everybody really knows and loves, and that's Google Trends. Okay. Those of you who aren't familiar with Google Trends, you can go to the site, you can enter in a particular search term, and Google Trends will show you visually what has demand been in terms of search demand, people searching for that term over time. And you can modify the settings so that you can see back like 5 years or back till 2004, or even within the past day. You can change it to show search demand within a particular country, on a particular platform like YouTube versus Google. And there are so many questions that I show students you can answer using Google Trends. Okay. Are we in a declining industry? How do we compare to competitors? The nice thing about Google Trends is you can enter in search terms one after another, and it will show various lines um, to represent each of those companies or each of those search terms that you put in. And we've used this to help companies make better decisions about naming, right? They wanted to go with a particular name. We were able to show them, it's nice that name is something that you want to refer to your products as or your company as. But as you can see, the search demand for that has declined rapidly. I shared this last year at ProfCon that out of our own research, we found that there are like 37 different schools that were calling their digital marketing class e-marketing. Okay. And this might be you, no offense. But what we can use Google Trends for is to show that, hey, e-marketing kind of reached its peak back in 2004. And if you compare that to something like digital marketing today, there's no competition. If you really want to look relevant, then you need to be using the terminology that people are actually searching for today. Something as basic as this type of data can equip you to be able to even make some big decisions in terms of changing name changes internally in your own organization. Okay, like people are receptive to very compelling but simple data that shows that, hey, what they had in mind may not be the way to go. So I highly recommend getting your students familiar with Google Trends. And you can even create exercises, whether it be part of an assignment or within class. You can even just pick like one basic company, and you can have students answer probably a dozen different questions about that company and its relationship to competitors, its products, and its industry very, very easily. Okay. So uh, quick example that I always think back to Google Trends about is, you remember that fidget spinners were a thing? One time I was in a mall and I saw that there was a kiosk selling fidget spinners, and the guy sitting at this kiosk was like the most miserable person I've ever seen. I've never seen anybody in my life who looked like they were feeling bad about their life choices than that guy sitting at the fidget spinner kiosk, not having any customers. And it's funny because you can look at Google Trends and you can see, I can actually match it up. This was, in August, and we were already past the fad, right? It was clearly the end of the fad, and yet there are businesses still operating, trying to sell products using what had peaked but didn't last very long. Okay, students need to be equipped to be able to effectively know how to do what I call quick and dirty market research, right? Google Trends, we shouldn't even call it a digital marketing tool. It's a market research tool. You can use this as a journalist. You can use this as a marketer. There are all sorts of ways you can use it. Okay. Next one I want to talk about is SEMrush. Now, SEMrush is one of the tools that is a tool that actually shows up in job postings. Okay, you won't see any job postings that say, "Hey, I want somebody who knows Google Trends really well," but you will see job postings asking for experience with SEMrush. Again, this is a paid tool. It would cost quite a bit, $200 a month if you wanted to subscribe to this. The nice thing is it's offering a premium or a freemium model where you can use a little bit every single day if you want, before running up against a usage cap of a couple of times. If you use the Stu Kent digital marketing textbook, they actually have a deal with SEMrush to give students a month of premium access for free. And this is essentially a toolkit run by a company that's really useful for understanding not just the trends and what people are searching for, but actual search volumes. Okay, if you want to see exactly on average how much are people searching for a particular thing each month, SEMrush can tell you that. It can tell you how much are companies spending on advertising, or how much advertising they're doing in terms of search advertising. How much visibility does the website get in terms of SEO? It will tell you, one of my favorite things, and I'll show you examples really quick, is it'll tell you things about how, which other websites are linking to a particular website. And that's one of the things that I found particularly useful. If you go back, for example, to College Gazette that I talked about earlier, we can actually type in College Gazette into SEMrush, and you can see that over time, just in the past 6 months or so, they've got 240 different websites now linking to them. And all because they use this ego bait to make schools feel good about themselves when there's really no true credibility behind their rankings. Okay. But it's obviously going to help them if they decide to do advertising, if they decide to do SEO and start selling lead generation for like for-profit colleges, which is something I've seen before. The other way in which we've used this successfully is you may have been asked before by a student, like, hey, I'm in charge of promoting an event. How can I promote this? Right. And a student last week contacted me. She's in charge of this essentially virtual dance conference in Detroit, and she was asking, "Hey, how can I promote my event?" Well, what we do is we use SEMrush to figure out um, which websites have linked to us in the past and have linked to our event pages in the past. Which websites have linked to what we might see as competitors' events, not really competitors, but similar types of events in the same location in the past. All of a sudden, we have generated an entire array of promotion options, of websites we can reach out to and are much more likely to send traffic to our website and help us fill our events. We did this as a client project in my own class, helping our School of Music drive more attendance at their own events. Okay. So again, SEMrush is one of those tools that's extremely versatile. It can help you answer a lot of different marketing questions, and you can often stack these questions in interesting ways throughout any sort of client project that you might have. Okay. Last one that I want to focus on is something that I am surprised not enough professors are using to their maximum, and that is Facebook's own advertising audience tools. So you can actually go into Facebook and you can act as if you are going to create an ad and use all their audience planning tools without ever having to use a credit card or having to actually run an ad. Okay. This is a phenomenal tool that we use all the time for understanding how big is the market for what it is that our company sells. The awesome part of this is that if you have students who have been asking, hey, I need to get experience with programmatic advertising, what does that look like? This is it. Okay. You can come in, you can change your settings for demographics, location, interest targeting based on the information that Facebook has about the 200 and something million Facebook users it has access to. And as you change the settings, you'll notice here on the right, it will change the estimates for the number of people you're likely to reach on any given day for running an ad campaign. If you did this for real, it will estimate how many clicks you might get for driving people to your website. Okay. And so I use this both in terms of like ad planning and thinking about how much demand is there for what we sell, but also very heavily with things like advertising metrics and doing scenario planning and having students think about, okay, if these are the estimated daily results, does this campaign even make sense to run based on how much I'm selling this product for, based on how much I'm likely to spend and the profitability of this product. Okay. So the cool thing about these tools is that really you can overlap as much of these different audiences and demographics as you want to really get down to your target market. And it's extremely effective in a lot of different cases for things you may want to do yourself. If you want to get there yourself, I recommend like these are the instructions that would get you exactly to where you get to play around with the audience tools and see those projections change. Again, this presentation is found at scottcowley.com/teach. You can just go there and follow it yourself. And if you're having trouble, let me know and I can create a walkthrough video for you. Okay. So I also mentioned that LinkedIn has exactly the same thing. So if you wanted, you could even show students how do we use these two different tools in tandem. Who can we reach with one tool versus the other tool, right? Especially if you've got more of like a B2B case and company. Well, LinkedIn is probably going to help you reach a particular type of person or type of company in ways that Facebook's own audience planning tools may not be able to do. Okay. So those are the four that I am in love with and I use forever and ever. And I really, really drill down into my students to be able to use effectively. And I use them in multiple classes and multiple projects. With the last few minutes, I want to talk you through some other tools that I think offer unique value. And again, some of these you're probably familiar with, others you may not be, but I encourage you to like test out any tool you've never used before, right? It's always a good idea. So what here's probably another 8 or so tools that I think most professors should at least introduce their students to in some capacity. Canva is like the poor man's version of Photoshop, plus it's built for business and marketing users, right? It's got templates for everything, and I use this in different ad design assignments in combination with things like Facebook and LinkedIn ad planning tools, okay? Ad Parlor is an awesome site for you to be able to do actual mock-ups so that you can see, hey, what would an actual Facebook ad look like if I were to create something like that? Okay, I will often use Ad Parlor in combination with Canva, so I can say, okay, create a Facebook ad in Ad Parlor, create more of a banner ad where you have to integrate your call to action button and stuff like that into the actual graphic within Canva, and it can be a nice combination. Klaviyo, those of you who are trying to teach email marketing or interested in getting into marketing automation, Klaviyo is an email marketing provider that I think is phenomenal in terms of the marketing automation tools that it makes available. Now, for free, you have a very small list size. You can only, send emails up to 250 people if you use Klaviyo. But the whole point is that the back end, you can create drip campaigns and workflows much better than I've seen in any other email marketing program. So I encourage you to check that out, okay? A lot of you are now familiar with Loom as creating video for your own classes. I was using Loom before we went online, specifically to do things like help students do usability tests where they want to put someone in front of a website, give them a list of questions to answer, tasks, and film them as they're going through the website. You can see the website screen. Whoa. You can see the website screen. Well, also you can get a recording of their face at the same time, and then send that over to the client because it's all saved in one easy free URL that's all web hosted. Okay. Keywordtool.io is great in pairing with other SEO tools for SEO projects. You can get all sorts of ideas for what people are searching for. It won't tell you how much people are searching for them, but it's just an idea generation tool that can help guide your SEO or your content strategy. Social Searcher, one some of you may be familiar with. It's very hard to find a tool that gives you social media analytics with sentiment analysis. Okay, Brandwatch used to offer that. Some other companies used to offer it. They don't offer it anymore. It's very hard to find like data that students can look up a company, download some of that data, look at sentiment. Social Searcher is one of the only ones that I have found that does that for free. It's still not great, but it's better than anything else we've got. So I encourage you to use that. BuzzSumo is really awesome because you can look up particular keywords and you can see different articles that have been published across the web and which ones have been most popular. If you're ever trying to get ideas for what's going to be awesome content, like that hub content I talked about earlier, BuzzSumo is fantastic at jumpstarting and letting you know what has already been super, super popular around this topic. It also has some influencer marketing features in it that you may be able to access and find ways to use. And then the last tool that I want to mention is one that I have not used personally, but I plan to. I just found out about this last week. This is a demo account offered by Optimizely. So demo.optimizely.com actually allows students to play with and make a test variation of a typical e-commerce page. And so you could have students figure out, hey, how might I change this page in a way that I think is going to be more successful, as a nice introductory way to talking about A/B testing. Okay, so I encourage you to think about and see if this might work for you. Again, we've covered a lot of tools. There's some that I think are much more versatile than others. The decision-making tools like 3 questions analysis and Hero Hub help strategy, I think, are the most effective because of the mileage they get and because you can bake them into just about anything. Last thing I will let you know is what's important when it comes to teaching with digital marketing tools is it's not enough to be really comfortable with the tool. You have got to be super, super comfortable knowing what questions you can answer with the tools and the decisions you might make as a result of that. Okay. That means you've got to know these tools personally. You've got to have enough comfort to be able to pull these out in conversation and use them not just in class in one particular section, but to have them be easy and readily available for you to pull out in regular conversations with students about the things that they're doing. So get comfortable with them. And you do want to make sure that you double check the links to these tools, the type of data that you're getting through these tools before every semester, before each new class, because sometimes they do change. And because there's so many awesome tools out there, I highly recommend that you yourself and also teach your students to use a password manager, something that is going to sit in your browser that will automatically keep whatever password is required for a particular website. I used LastPass, but there are several out there, and that will take away the nervousness of just signing up for something that might have very specific requirements as far as using a password goes. Okay. Now, last thing I want to mention is you might be having to do these things online, right? How can you get students experience with using digital marketing tools in an online environment, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous? I typically, in my brief experience doing this, I have found that you need to create an environment where students are not just using the tool, but they have to deliver something after their usage, right? If they're using Google Trends, then you need to get them comfortable sharing screenshots or talking about what they've done. And you can do this asynchronously too, right? I've used Loom to create asynchronous video, and I'll have a particular spot in the video where I say, okay, now take a break. I've just showed you how to use this tool. I want you to go do this. And down in the comments underneath the video, I've got a question there specifically for you to talk about what you've found through your use of the tool and answering particular meaningful questions. Okay. So there are so many tools out there. The important thing is that you have a few that you use really, really well, and that you teach students to use well and be able to draw upon when it actually counts. Okay. So keep in mind that it's still a very uncertain environment we're in terms of teaching, and even if you're not perfect at this in using these, you will get better over time, and they will become more intuitive to you, and you'll become a better professor, and your students will thank you for it when they have these sorts of stories that come up in their own experiences with jobs and trying to get jobs, especially in this type of environment that we have. But I just want you to remember that I love you all, and we will see you in the giant bubbles. But do let me know if there's anything that I can help you with or clarify. You got my email there and the website where you can find this presentation. And thanks again, everybody.
Scott, thank you for that presentation. That was outstanding. We're short on time, so I'm going to do one question from the chat, and then we'll pop off this one so people have time to take a bio break if they need before Elaine and Michelle's presentation. One of the questions that came up was, how does Klaviyo compare to HubSpot?
Good question. I don't know. HubSpot is like a fully baked platform that would allow you to do CRM and content and social, right? And I've definitely seen a lot more companies ask for HubSpot experience in job postings than I have for Klaviyo. What I do think is that it's going to be very fast and easy for you to get in to start using marketing automation tools, and specifically for the purposes of class projects and assignments and experiencing drip campaigns and stuff like that. It's going to be much faster and more intuitive to jump into Clavio to sign up really quick for their free version and get using that. Probably a lower learning curve than if you were trying to do the same thing as a free non-paying user in HubSpot.
That's great. Excellent. One of the tools that Scott covered was SEMrush. If you use Stu Kent's Digital Marketing Essentials book or the Essentials of Social Media Marketing book, both of those have an SEMrush assignment in them. And your students can get a 30-day free trial as well as part of that assignment. So if you're using those books and you haven't checked out that assignment, do it. It's an excellent tool. Thank you, Scott, again, for all your time. We're super excited for your book coming up next year. And everyone can go ahead, jump off this one. We've got about 4 minutes until our next presentation with Elaine and Michelle.
Excellent participation. All digital that way.
Like you do in a classroom.
That's
all right.
True.
We'll see you here in a few minutes.
All right. Hey, thanks again,
Michelle. Thank you. Bye.